Most people only think about capital gains tax after they've already sold an investment. And that timing mistake quietly costs the average investor hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars every single year. Here's the uncomfortable truth about capital gains tax. Holding an investment for just one extra day can legally cut your tax bill in half. That's not a loophole. That's how the tax code was designed to work, and most beginners have no idea it applies to them. If you sold a stock, a mutual fund, or even a house this year, you almost certainly owe capital gains tax on the profit. And if you sold too soon, the IRS treats that profit like a paycheck, taxing it at your full ordinary income rate, which could be 22%, 24%, or higher. But here's the good news. Once you understand two rules, short-term versus long-term, and where your income lands in the bracket, you can make smarter decisions before you ever hit sell. Stay with me, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to keep more of what your investments actually earn. Here's the part. Almost everyone gets backwards. You do not owe capital gains tax just because your investment went up in value. The tax clock only starts the moment you actually sell. A capital gain is simply the profit you make when you sell an asset for more than you paid for it. What you originally paid is called your cost basis. If you bought 100 shares of an index fund for $3,000 and later sold them for $4,500, your capital gain is $1,500. That $1,500 is what gets taxed, not the full $4,500. This matters because a lot of beginners look at their brokerage account, see a big unrealized gain, meaning a gain on paper that they haven't locked in yet, and assume they already owe the IRS. You don't. The IRS doesn't touch unrealized gains. Only when you sell does it become realized, and only then does the tax apply. The same rule works in reverse, too. If you sell at a loss, that's called a capital loss, and it can actually reduce your tax bill. We'll come back to that. But first, the most important split in all of capital gains tax: short-term versus long-term. This is the section that puts real money back in your pocket. Because the difference between these two categories is enormous. If you sell an asset you've owned for 1 year or less, the IRS classifies that gain as short-term. Short-term gains are taxed at your ordinary income tax rate, the same rate applied to your salary or wages. Depending on your income, that could be anywhere from 10% all the way up to 37%. Now here's where it flips. If you hold that exact same asset for more than 1 year, meaning at least 1 year and 1 day, the gain becomes long-term. And long-term capital gains have their own special lower tax rates, 0%, 15%, or 20%, depending on your income. That's it, 3 rates, all lower than ordinary income rates. To feel the real difference, put a number on it. Say you made a $10,000 profit on an index fund. If you're in the 22% ordinary income bracket and you sold after 10 months, you owe $2,200 in tax on that gain. Wait just 2 more months, cross that 1-year line, and that same $10,000 gain likely qualifies for the 15% long-term rate instead. Now you owe $2,500. That's $700 saved by waiting. On a larger gain, say $50,000, the same math saves you $3,500. Patience in this case is a tax strategy. But knowing short-term versus long-term is only half the picture. The other half is knowing which bracket you actually fall into. And that's where most people are surprised. Here's the part that surprises most people. A huge number of Americans pay 0% in long-term capital gains tax. Not because they have an accountant with a trick, because the bracket is wider than almost anyone realizes. For the 2024 tax year, the long-term capital gains brackets based on taxable income work like this. The 0% rate applies if your taxable income is $4,725 or below as a single filer, or $94,050 or below for a married couple filing jointly. The 15% rate covers the range above that, up to $518,900 for single filers, and up to $583,750 for married couples filing jointly. Above those thresholds, the rate is 20%. So if you are a single person earning $45,000 a year in regular income, and you sell a long-held index fund for a $5,000 profit, you owe $0 in federal capital gains tax on that gain. 0. Even if you're comfortably in the middle class, the 15% rate covers an enormous range. The vast majority of American investors will never touch the 20% bracket. That's genuinely good news, and it's worth repeating because it rarely gets said. This tax is much more manageable than most people fear. One important note, these brackets are based on your total taxable income, which includes your wages, salary, and any other ordinary income. Your capital gains stack on top of your regular income, so it's your combined picture that determines which rate applies. That stacking effect can sometimes push part of your gain into a higher bracket. Understanding exactly when that happens is how you plan ahead. And the next section covers the one extra tax some higher earners owe that almost no one talks about. There's a quieter tax that sits on top of capital gains for certain earners, and it catches people off guard. It's called the Net Investment Income Tax, or NIIT, and it adds an extra 3.8% on investment income, including capital gains, once your modified adjusted gross income crosses $200,000 for single filers or $250,000 for married couples filing jointly. So for a high earner in the 20% long-term bracket, the real effective rate on capital gains can reach 23.8% once you add that 3.8%. That's still meaningfully lower than the top ordinary income rate of 37%, but it's no longer the small number on the bracket chart. If you're not near those income thresholds, you can skip this for now. The NIIT won't apply to you. But if you are, or if you expect a large one-time gain from something like selling a business or a rental property, this is the number your tax professional needs to factor in. Speaking of large one-time gains, real estate has its own special rules inside the capital gains system, and they're worth knowing even if you're years away from selling a home. Selling a home is often the single largest financial transaction of a person's life. And the capital gains rules here have a benefit built in that most homeowners don't fully know about. If you sell your primary residence, the home you actually live in, the IRS allows you to exclude up to $250,000 of profit from capital gains tax if you're single, or up to $500,000 if you're married filing jointly. This exclusion applies as long as you've owned the home and lived in it as your primary residence for at least 2 of the last 5 years before the sale. So a married couple who bought a home for $300,000, lived in it for several years, and sold it for $750,000 made a $450,000 profit. Thanks to the exclusion, the entire $450,000 falls under the $500,000 limit, and they owe zero in federal capital gains tax on the sale. That's a massive benefit, but it only applies to your primary residence. A vacation home, a rental property, or a second home does not qualify for this exclusion, and those gains are taxed at standard capital gains rates. The 2-year residency rule is the key, and it's worth knowing long before you decide to sell. Now, there is one powerful strategy inside your investment accounts that can help you reduce capital gains tax even further, and most beginners have never used it deliberately. Here's something genuinely useful that sounds complicated but is actually straightforward. It's called tax loss harvesting, and it's one of the few legal ways to directly reduce your capital gains tax bill in the same year you owe it. The idea works like this. If you have investments that have gone down in value and you sell them, you lock in a capital loss. The IRS lets you use that capital loss to offset or cancel out capital gains you made elsewhere. So if you made a $4,000 gain on one fund, but took a $1,500 loss on another, you only pay tax on the net gain of $2,500, not the full $4,000. And it goes further. If your capital losses for the year exceed your capital gains entirely, you can use up to $3,000 of that excess loss to offset ordinary income, like your salary. Any losses beyond $3,000 carry forward to future tax years, so nothing is wasted. One rule to know, the IRS has what's called the wash sale rule. If you sell an investment at a loss and then buy the same or substantially identical investment within 30 days before or after the sale, the IRS disallows the loss. So you'd need to wait 31 days or buy something different enough to avoid triggering it. Tax loss harvesting works best inside a regular taxable brokerage account. Inside a 401k or IRA, you don't pay capital gains tax in the first place, which brings up the single most important place to let your investments grow. The most powerful capital gains tax strategy isn't about timing your sales. It's about where you hold your investments in the first place. Inside a traditional 401k or traditional IRA, your investments grow tax-deferred. You don't pay capital gains tax when you sell funds inside the account. You only pay ordinary income tax when you withdraw money in retirement. That's a significant advantage during the decades of compounding in between. Inside a Roth IRA or Roth 401k, the advantage is even greater. Your investments grow completely tax-free. When you sell inside a Roth and eventually withdraw in retirement, you owe nothing. No capital gains tax, no ordinary income tax on that growth. A $10,000 gain inside a Roth is yours to keep entirely. An HSA, a health savings account, works similarly for medical expenses. Invest inside it. The growth is tax-free, and qualified withdrawals are also tax-free. That's 3 layers of tax protection in one account. The practical takeaway is this: hold your highest growth investments, broadly diversified index funds, for example, inside your tax-advantaged accounts when possible. Save the taxable brokerage account for investments you plan to hold long-term anyway, where you can control when you trigger a gain. Put these pieces together. Know the one-year line, understand your bracket, use losses when they exist, and maximize your tax-sheltered accounts. And capital gains tax goes from something intimidating to something you can genuinely manage. Let's bring it all together. Capital gains tax explained simply: you owe it when you sell an asset for more than you paid. Short-term gains, assets held 1 year or less, are taxed at your regular income rate. Long-term gains, held more than 1 year, are taxed at 0%, 15%, or 20% depending on your total income, and most people land in the 0% or 15% bracket. Real estate gets a generous exclusion for your primary home. Tax loss harvesting lets you offset gains with losses, and tax-advantaged accounts like your Roth IRA and 401k let you sidestep capital gains tax almost entirely on your long-term growth. The single most actionable thing you can do right now: before you hit sell on any investment, check how long you've held it. If you're a few weeks away from that 1-year mark, the wait is almost always worth it. Now that you understand capital gains tax, the next thing that quietly undoes all of it is not knowing how to build a tax-efficient investment portfolio in the first place, which accounts to use in what order, and why it changes depending on your income. That video is already on this channel. Go watch that one next. If this helped you, subscribe to Plain Money so you never miss a video like this one. And drop a comment below. I want to know, did you know about the 0% capital gains bracket before today? Let me know.